How's it going, everyone? Welcome to today's market analysis or trade recap series episode. And today is May the 1st. And today we took one trade that did end up going in our favor, and it was quite a good trade that had significant factors on order flow and on footprint as well. So I do want to take a look into that during this episode as well. And we'll also look over some further action before the day and prior to the day via footprint and bookmap as well. So let's get started. So let's start off with some quick context for the day. We have all these key levels marked on NQ, on ES, similar types of thing. So what we saw happening was that we came up pretty high, very close to this main liquidity level, which is also a high volume node, but we were not able to actually get all the way up there. We started rejecting down prior to market open. Now, post market open, we saw that price was dipping, going up, dipping, and then we swept these two liquidity levels down below. Now, from these two liquidity levels down below at 8:55 9ish time, we started to revert back up again with pretty nice buying action. But if you take a look at Forex Factory, we did have news at 9 a.m. that was high impact. So we do need to take a 5-minute interval between that. So between 9:05, between these three candles right here, we could not have traded, which does mean that we could not cash this reversal right there. But price essentially reversed after the sweep of this liquidity. So I'm already having an assumption that since we took out these two levels down below, we can head back up to these levels above and high volume levels above, because we came so close to it last time, and now we have efficient fuel to actually potentially make our way all the way up towards that area. So we start going up and up. Same thing happens on ES pretty much. We sweep this first level, and we start reversing towards the upside. Now we continue to reverse towards the upside, and what I'm looking for is I'm looking for a simple retracement with some order flow confluence, whether that be barrier or absorption on footprint. If I can see something of that nature happen where it's not too extended, then I can potentially enter for a nice profit, and that's what we did here today. If you look on ES, we created a big imbalance towards the upside, leaving a nice fair value gap here. And if we mark out our V2 level between the top and low of the fair value gap, our V2 level is right at the bottom of the fair value gap. And if you take a look at it, our candle wicked right towards that middle V2 level and continued to go up all the way to our highest bookmap level, where we saw reversal later on in the day. But if you take a look on here, it does not look quite similar. But let's talk about why I actually took this trade. First factor, like I mentioned, was we saw a retracement into fair value gap. Now, if you take a look at the second factor, shout out to Think with Bookmap once again, great resource I highly recommend you guys to use, is that we come up to important levels on Bookmap, right? And we start seeing a barrier form after this micro barrier, or this barrier, starts to get rejected. We start opening up this large barrier, large width barrier. So price continues to go down, and what we see is that the barrier basically gets broken. Now, because it almost gets broken, it's not looking too good for the longs. We're not in the trade just yet. But if you keep going, we start seeing that right at these lows right here, there's still a little bit of barrier action. And with those barrier action came plenty of icebergs and buy stops, which did lead me to think that this would be a great reversal spot, and with these barriers coming in, it could be fuel to continue towards the upside, stopping many sellers out. And that does seem to be exactly what happened. If we take a look on the footprint chart as well, right at a time of trade, you can clearly see on ES order flow that from this fair value gap right here, we started seeing rejection towards the upside. If you go into the footprint, take a look at this right here. First of all, this upwards candle that resulted in the fair value gap had a large seller delta amount during this area, showing that although sellers come in this area, buyers continue to hold this area with a good amount of volume. Now, we came back down to this level where we saw heavy seller delta, and we started putting more heavy seller delta in once again. But is price breaking below? No, it's holding this at level, and it's holding with quite a good amount of volume as well. And as we're going up, we're creating nice big buyer delta, and that's showing, those are all showing signs that we're seeing absorption at that level. And with the impact of the barrier as well, the absorption and the idea that there are passive buyers at the area preventing sellers from continuing towards the downside shows me that we likely can see continuation upwards. So we enter long, and we target, our first target is going to be this 5665 area, but our real target is going to be this 56770 target, because that is the most significant one, simply if you look on the charts. Because as these micro barriers are forming, the strength of this is also reducing. So if we see invalidation at 665 area, we're gonna get out. But if we don't, we can hold until 70, exit, and then potentially re-enter if we see anything after that. So price continues, and we head straight to that 5670 level where we get our exit on the market. Now, if you think about it as well, even though we basically broke this barrier here, we could have went short, but why did we not go short? And even if this barrier got fully broken, why didn't we go short? Well, it's simply because there's not really anything towards the downside that price wants to target. Just by looking at the charts, there's so much liquidity up at 5,700 on ES, and there's not really anything much below. When there's such deviation like that, price always wants to target the area where most auction volume can be comprehended and executed. So that's some further analysis on that. So if I did have to say where price may go for the day, it might head to 5,700, or it might head to different levels. It might head to 5,680. It depends on where we react. But I can almost bet you that it's going to happen when there are a large liquidity on Bookmap. And if you take a look, yeah, would you look at that? We wicked the 5680 level, and we started making movement down. So essentially for my trade, that's basically it. We did not see invalidation at 5665, so we exited at 5670 because that was our main target, and we were able to capture a nice 1.8 risk to reward ratio, placing our stop loss below the barrier. So this trade was pretty well executed and not a bad trade at all. Now, before I end this video, I do want to backtest or analyze this area with order flow, and also analyze this area with order flow as well. So let's start out by analyzing this area at 9 a.m. So let's go to this 9 a.m. area. Yeah, honestly, that's quite perfect, right? And let me explain to you why. Right at 9 a.m., we started seeing movement towards the downside, but take a look here what we have here. We have a large barrier or liquidity level here on Bookmap that got swept. We saw large seller volume get introduced, and then buyers start stepping in. That's a pretty big sign of absorption. Now, let's take a look at footprint as well, right? Right at 9. You can't really see much absorption here on the footprint chart because there's spread out volume, and that's likely because of news. But this candle prior, look at how much seller delta we had throughout the candle. And when we started to reject, it's likely that all this seller volume got stopped out, allowing us to push higher with stronger momentum. But there's not really much clear sign of absorption here on the footprint chart, and that's likely because there's news as well. Let's take a look at where we exited as well, because why not? Yeah, the area where we exited, we did start to see seller delta come in with heavy strength right there. So it's not a bad exit at all. When we came down, we started to see seller delta get introduced there and price revert directly from that seller delta area without breaking below much. And that provided us more confidence to continue heading towards the upside. This trade that we made was likely the most simple and most effective for those 3 opportunities. Now let's go ahead and analyze these highs as well. See what made the market actually reverse. So let's go to 10:15 on Bookmap. I'm in CST time, so here this is EST time or EDT time. So I'm 1 hour behind that. Yeah, I mean, here we do seem that we take out this 680 level with quite a bit of strength. We actually sweep through that level, but we end up coming back down here and coming towards that relative area. But we do have barriers at 682 and 685, while we start to see support barriers here. If we continue going forward, it does look like the support barrier is holding and the barriers are falling price down. So it's showing signs that a breakout is likely to occur because the range that we can trade in is shortening and is getting squeezed essentially, making us require a pop out on either side to see continuation towards either the downside or the upside. And looking at the price now, it looks like this barrier held pretty nicely and stood as a barrier for price, pushing the price downwards. But honestly, there would be no setup I would personally take even at those highs, because I don't like trading when 2 barriers are right against each other unless there is additional confluence on footprint. So let's take a look on footprint. On the footprint, we do see decent amount of buyer delta up near the highs, which does show signs of absorption. So potentially a decent entry might be at the close or bottom wick of this candle right here, because this candle is showing that sellers are getting much more active in the market. Simply look at the amount of seller delta in this candle distributed throughout the candle, not just at one location. If we take a look at the candle prior, we have heavy volume near the top with heavy buying delta, and also heavy selling delta. It likely shows that buyers likely wanted to get in at this area, but they were getting absorbed by passive sellers within the market, which could be observed using these limit orders right here. those passive sellers, but showing us that there's passive sellers helping push price downwards. And now here, sellers are getting more active. Good confirmation for a potential reversal upon a barrier break. And barrier break happened at 7-1. So the barrier break was right here when we started to see this heavy seller delta occur. We broke all the way down and seemed to have continued for the day. But honestly, I don't see anything really that makes it stand out to me to take a setup there, because there was a supporting barrier towards the upside on bookmap. Potentially, if that was not there and we saw more of a touch into upper barriers, more of a touch into these, then potentially a good short setup could have been presented. But honestly, I don't see much there, so we would have likely been flat at those 2 pivot points as well. But I'm going to leave it today here for that. Today we discussed the trade which I took, resulting in a 1.88 risk to reward ratio. We've set up some overall structure for the day. We've talked about why we couldn't trade at 9 because there was high impact news. And we used footprint and bookmap for further analysis and analyzation of 2 other pivot points and essential areas in the day as well. That's all I have here for today. If you have any questions, please join the Discord. The link is in the description. It has many free resources that I highly recommend you guys to use. Additionally, feel free to leave a comment down below. I'll make sure to answer your questions there as well. Now, I guess I'll see you guys tomorrow for the next market analysis or trade recap session. I guess I'll see you guys then. Goodbye.